Here's the part nobody wants to picture, but his parents can't escape it. While most people were asleep on July 13th, 2024, an 18-year-old kid was dying in the arms of the people who loved him the most. Not in a hospital bed surrounded by decades of memories, not after a long life, but on a living room floor, battered, fading, whispering through pain he shouldn't have ever known. And the worst part? Someone out there knows exactly how he got that way, and they've managed to sleep just fine ever since. I'm Scott Gardner, former cop, former homicide detective, and someone who's lived on both sides of the law. And today, on what should have been Christion Olson's 20th birthday, we're dragging this case back into the light where it belongs. Let's start with who he was. Not a statistic, not some troublemaker, a kid with a worth ethic that put most grown adults to shame. His pig took grand champion at the Cuyahoga County Fair. He was lined up for HVAC school, aiming to be a lineman. Real job, real future, real direction. His grandfather, Roosevelt Price, said he'd help anybody with anything. That's the headline that people always forget. They strip out the human being, reduce him to a case number, and move on. His family doesn't get to move on. They get to wake up every day and stare at the spot he used to sit. This is just a day to everyone else. But the family doesn't get to celebrate another birthday today. They're forced to live through a date that should have brought cake and candles, not grief and questions. Here's the timeline. July 12th, small get-together with friends, Topaz Lane. Kids being kids. Food, jokes, nothing out of the ordinary on camera. There's even video of him eating, laughing, no signs of conflict. Sometime between 2 and 3 a.m., he leaves alone. About 20 minutes later, Eric and Aiden find him laying on the grass near 634, 638 Topaz Lane. He's on his back, responsive but barely. He's mumbling, saying he can't feel his upper body. He's bruised badly. While they're standing there trying to figure out what to do, 3 younger males walk up. 2 described as white, 1 Asian, late teens to early 20s. And according to Eric, one of them had a knife out. Not using it in a threatening manner, but drawn out of alarm because, as they stated, Christion had been knocking on their door moments earlier. By the time they got to the door, he was already gone. This is one version of what happened. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying I've never seen an official standalone statement from these males. Only what's in the police report from the people who were already with Christion. Eric says the 3 males came outside just to see what was going on. They didn't call police. They didn't call fire. Nobody did. Now, there is a bit of evidence that supports that one of the 3 individuals that came up, the one where Christion was knocking on their door, purportedly attempted to call 911, but the call did not go through. Supposedly, he showed police his screen showing that the call log for the 911 call. Eric ends up calling Christion's older brother, and it's decided they'll get him back to Ivy Hill Lane. They lift him into a vehicle. Christion's condition starts to decline. A stop is made at Bunker Hill Golf Course where they pull him out again, then back into the car. And here's the part that doesn't make a lot of sense at all. That stop at Bunker Hill. Why pull over at a golf course with a barely conscious, badly beaten 18-year-old? Why take him out of the vehicle, then put him back in again? None of it tracks with a medical emergency, and it definitely doesn't track with common sense. Then somewhere in the chaos, another friend, Braylon Donner, is called and shows up at Bunker Hill to help get Olson back into the vehicle. Why Braylon? Why there? Why now? That decision chain has never been explained in any report, and the narrative feels stitched together after the fact instead of documented in real time. His parents wake up to screams, chaos, and the moment every parent prays they never have to face. He stops breathing. They fight to save him. Paramedics fight to save him. The hospital fights to save him. Everyone loses. Autopsy comes back, blunt force trauma, internal injuries, so severe no reasonable person could call this anything but homicide. And eventually, in September 2024, the coroner finally does. Now, let's address one of the rumors that's floated around since day one. The idea that maybe a car hit him. I've heard it. You've heard it. The community whispers it like it's some kind of alternative theory that explains everything neatly. Is it possible? No, I can't sit here and say it's impossible. Car versus pedestrian impacts can produce massive internal trauma, rib fractures, organ lacerations, spinal injuries, even a lack of external wounds, depending on the angle, the height, and the vehicle design. I've worked cases where victims looked more beat up internally than externally. But here's why it's not probable. Not in this case. Number one, there's no pattern of injuries consistent with a vehicle strike. There's no tire marks, no roadway debris, no shearing abrasions, no pattern bruising that tracks across the body in a way consistent with a bumper, hood, or windshield impact. Two, the location. It was found in the grass, not on the roadway. Could a vehicle hit him and launched him there? Maybe. But you'd expect drag marks, impact displacement, disturbed turf, something. There's nothing like that in the reports. Three, the behavior. If a car hit him, the injuries would have likely been instantly catastrophic, not gradual. The way his condition deteriorated, conscious, talking, then declining, aligns far more with sustained blunt force trauma than a sudden high impact collision. So while the rumor isn't scientifically impossible, it doesn't match the physical evidence, the location, the witness accounts, or the injury pattern. And here's another piece that hits the brakes on the hit-skip theory. The autopsy didn't show petechia, no eye hemorrhaging.
Okay, look straight ahead for me. Now look to the left. Good, now look up towards the ceiling.
No facial petechia. No signs consistent with sudden compression, strangulation, or any kind of airway obstruction. In vehicle strikes, especially ones violent enough to cause that level of internal damage Christion suffered, you often see telltale pressure-related findings, secondary injuries, or impact transfer marks. None of it is here. The internal trauma reads like blunt force, not a car, not compression, not an impact that would produce the constellation of findings associated with a vehicular collision. It's a theory people latch into because it feels simple, but simple doesn't mean accurate in homicide work. We covered this early in our October 2024 episode. We discussed the rumors circulating then and the homicide ruling, body cam review, and the first clear indicators of an investigative drift. We played the body cam, unanswered questions, a department clearly overwhelmed by a case bigger than their comfort zone. We talked with the chief of Brunswick Hills. He said he was losing sleep. He said phones were at BCI. He said encrypted data was slowing the process. Translation, hurry up and wait. Meanwhile, evidence gets farmed out like a PTA bake sale. Phone extractions to BCI, DNA to Lake County, timelines bouncing around. It's like everybody had a piece of the puzzle, but nobody was actually putting it together. And every time the family asked for updates, they got the same canned line. It's active. Active where? In a drawer? And while farming all of the evidence out is normal, there needs to be someone there piecing it all together when it returns. Jim Sanford was originally the point person and left to go to Lorain County Sheriff's Office without even notifying the family. Sanford has a pattern of disappearing after homicide investigations launch. He pulled almost the same move during the Brian Macron case, retired and slid over to Brunswick Hills. History does repeat. Medina County just refuses to learn from it. Friends who were at the gathering, their stories don't line up. Details shift, memories blur, and every time the inconsistencies stack up, the official line stays the same. We're working leads. Show me the leads. After a year and a half, if you can't name a suspect, that's not a lead. That's a loop. Just recently, the popular true crime podcast Crime Junkie covers this case and showed that now familiar photo of Christion eating, smiling, alive. So we know at the moment that that photo was taken, everything seemed to be okay. But what we don't know, what Medina County still hasn't delivered, is everything that happened after. We need phones, we need pings, we need unfiltered interviews that haven't shifted 3 times. We need clarity on the Bunker Hill stop. We need the statements from the 3 males who supposedly encountered him. We need the investigative backbone that never showed up. What the family needs is the truth, the parts nobody's willing to put on camera yet. Then came the vigils. Dozens of neighbors walking on Topaz Lane, holding signs, chanting his name. His mother, Rochelle, said she wasn't angry. She was pissed. His father, Christopher, says they feel alone. That's what real grief sounds like. And every time the cameras show up, the Brunswick Hills Police Department rolls out the same line. We're doing everything possible speech. Show me everything. Because right now, everything looks like nothing. Reward money, $5,000 from the prosecutor, $3,000 from people who cared enough to help. $8,000 total to break the silence. Crime Stoppers backing off the family edition. That was interesting timing. Medina County wants tips, but God forbid the family tries to push the issue without the county's permission. Let's hit the official fact sheet. Incident, July 12th to the 13th, 2024. Location, Topaz Lane, Brunswick Hills. Cause of death, blunt force trauma, ruled homicide. Evidence, phone extractions pending, DNA pending, at least as far as we know. Suspects, 0. Timeline clarity, non-existent. Transparency, worse than non-existence. And if you think this case feels like it's drifted into the swamp, congratulations, you've been paying attention. By spring 2025, media coverage ramps up again, walks for justice, community outrage, a tired chief doing his best to convince the cameras progress is happening behind closed doors. But progress isn't measured in press conferences. It's measured in action. Where is it? Summer of 2025, 1-year anniversary, WKOIC hits the air with a brutal segment. Rochelle says communication for police is terrible. She says she's pissed. She's right. Imagine losing your child and still having to beg for basic updates from the police sworn to protect your community. Imagine watching the calendar flip while the case files collect dust. And here's where the Medina pattern shows up again. Because if you've followed the infamous ex-chief for any length of time, you already know this isn't a one-off. This is a county with a habit. Delayed searches, confused timelines, revolving door detectives, and a public information strategy that amounts to talk as little as possible and hope people forget. Phone evidence has been sitting with BCI longer than some inmates sitting awaiting trial. And DNA samples have traveled more than most Ohio residents. And witnesses, half of them lawyered up, clammed up, or changed their recollections like they were swapping out phone cases. But despite all that, there's one truth they can't outrun. Somebody out there knows exactly what happened to Christion Olson. The community hasn't forgotten, not even close. Walks, vigils, fundraisers, posters, Reddit threads, true crime podcast, Facebook groups lighting up every month. Folks refusing to let this case slip quietly into the abyss. Every chant, every share, every news feature is a reminder. The silence isn't working. And let's be blunt, Medina County law enforcement has a credibility problem. You don't get to spend years fumbling homicide cases and then act shocked when the public doesn't trust your process. Pro-cop means pro-accountability. You want respect? Earn it. Bring transparency. Bring updates. Bring results. Zoom out, and this case sits right alongside the broader Medina mess. The Macron case, the botched timelines, the investigative shortcuts, the we'll get to it culture. Christian's death is a part of a bigger problem, one that keeps replaying like a bad rerun. Different victim, same silence. But today isn't about the Brunswick Hills Police Department. It's about an 18-year-old kid who deserved a full life. It's about a family walking into another December 4th without their son. Another birthday that should have been celebrated, not mourned. It's about a community refusing to let bureaucratic stagnation smother the truth. So here's the call to action. If you know something, anything about what happened on Topaz Lane that night, step up. You can stay anonymous. You can stay safe. You can stay silently public. But don't stay silent where it matters. Tip lines, 330-225-2081. That's the Brunswick Hills Police Department. Or reach out to me with the link in the description. Somebody out there can end this family's nightmare. Back on July 13th, the anniversary of his death, should have come with answers. But instead, still blowing the dust off a case file, Medina County keeps trying to bury under bureaucracy. Tentacle Nation, stay loud, stay persistent, because the louder we get, the harder it becomes for anyone to pretend the case is working itself out. Happy heavenly birthday, Fat Man. I can only hope that someone watching or listening can bring you justice. Be loud, be heard, shake the system until the truth falls out.